Ashid Kidwai, the Congress on a clear attempt right now to tie in these multiple independent incidents into one big narrative, especially there is an election in order in Bihar where the Congress has a keen eye on the Dalit vote. It started with the shoe throwing on the Chief Justice of India, who's Dalit, then the lynching of a young boy in Rai Bareli, and now the suicide of an IPS officer in Haryana.
I think, Preeti, this is most unfortunate. Each incident is a blot on our civil society, on our constitutional mechanism, and there is very little accountability. To accuse the opposition of any kind of seeking political mileage is also wrong and uncalled for, because these events are so glaring that it should have actually shaken the collective conscience of our political class and political parties cutting across party lines and ideologies should have come forward and expressed solidarity. So it's like me versus they. That kind of narrative is uncalled for, and therefore I think it's very grave. And there are times, and Preeti, we must also make a distinction between a mandate having any kind of impact or not having an impact. If suppose Bihar goes in a certain way, politically speaking, then it would not mean that what has happened is there is any kind of approval or tacit approval. So we should be very careful about these things. We should not look at from the political prism. This is something that it makes us actually very conscious that in year 2025 these things are happening, and why there is a need for a greater sensitivity towards Dalits, and the political class must hold people who are responsible. It's just one point, that if the Chief Justice of India is being gracious, that does not mean that the culprit can go scot-free. That person there should be a exemplary action against him. This the thing that it is not between it was not a personal matter between the CJI and him. It's an insult to the nation.
Fair point. So you're saying independent action should have been taken against the judge, even though this the entire incident took place within a courtroom and the Chief Justice of India had forgiven him. He could have been charged with contempt, but he was let go of. Karan Verma, I want to bring you in. This is the job of the opposition. 3 incidents have taken place where, the Chief Justice of this country was attacked inside the premises of a courtroom, and solely on what he had said on the basis of his Dalit identity. Then you have an incident in Rai Bareli where a young boy is lynched whose identity is, of course, Dalit. And then you have an incident of an IPS officer in Haryana whose letter, in his suicide letter, details the fact that he was discriminated against solely on the basis of his identity of being Dalit. Why should the opposition not pick this up as a pattern where it comes down to attacking one particular community? What's wrong with that?
So, Preeti, at the outset, as you just said, that just because there's an election around, we can't just link the 3 and give it an identity. Each case has its own merit. When you talk about the Chief Justice being attacked, he wasn't attacked because he's a Dalit. I condemn the attack. I condemn every single incident. There should be a thorough investigation into this case as well. But to link everything to a BJP government acting against Dalits, that sort of narrative which Rahul Gandhi, Priyanka Vadra and Mallikarjun Kharge are building, I think that's not called for. There are instances of such crimes happening in Congress-ruled states also. Karnataka, for example, Karnataka has actually slashed SC/ST fund. Talk about a policy which is affecting them directly. 14,000 crores slashed from SC/ST funds. So, we can't link it to one particular party or one particular identity. It is wrong and it should be investigated. Having said that, if we start jumping the gun and start looking at everything through the prism of identity, we remember Rohit Vemila's case. Everybody jumped the gun. What happened in March 2024? Not many know that it was the Gachibowli police under the Congress government, the Telangana government, which gave a clean chit to all who were pretty much accused and held an entire media trial was held about abetment to suicide. They were acquitted of that, and it was a suicide due to other reasons. So, let's not jump the gun and let's objectively look at each case rather than painting an entire picture about a party ki ye manuvadi hai. We can't be doing that. We'll be grossly irresponsible if we do something like that, and it's pretty much in line with what Rahul Gandhi wants. He wants fissures in the society to be exploited, the fault lines to be exploited. We should avoid and refrain from doing that.
Tehseen Poonawalla, is it as simplistic as this?
I wish it was as simple, but it isn't. The fact of the matter is, when the Chief Justice of India, a shoe is hurled at him, and the attacker goes about giving interviews and is platformed, that it shows the kind of mindset that is going on. I was on another show of a very prominent woman anchor, and full solidarity that the women anchors were not called and the women journalists were not called today. And the person who was defending the BJP, an official BJP spokesperson, said, "Ye kaise Dalit Chief Justice?" I'm using these words very clearly. Jo Louis Vuitton ka scarf pehante. That is the level of insensitivity in our society as of today. This was a BJP spokesperson on a very prominent journalist show. That's what's happening in our country. Rashid is right. Maybe the Chief Justice has forgiven the attacker, but the attack was a criminal offense. Forget contempt of court. It was a criminal offense. He should have been in jail. Let me ask very humbly with my hands folded, if any other political leader of this attack would have happened, would the attacker have been platformed and celebrated on social media? The fact is, somebody who was mob lynched because they thought he was an alleged a criminal, and then the name of a chief minister is taken, shows the kind of mindset we're coming from. The opposition is not just duty bound, it is the moral responsibility of the opposition to bring this out, because this is our country. We cannot allow mob justice and a large section of our fellow citizens to be humiliated. If after 70 odd years of independence, the Chief Justice has shoes thrown and an official spokesperson says, but he wears a Louis Vuitton scarf. Is that where we are heading as a country? And these remarks have happened for Kharge ji as well, who also comes from the same community. This community is continuing to be discriminated against. These are not my words, the words of our Honorable Prime Minister.
You know, I want to cut across to Raghav Avasthi right now. Raghav Avasthi, the fact is something that Karun also said, that there is an attempt, especially by the opposition, to create fissures in society on the lines of caste. And I would reckon, you know, one can use that and say it when you come from a position of privilege where the caste hierarchy comes into question. Because I don't think that anybody's going to try and create fissures. Those fissures already exist. One can suggest that you have a political party that is trying to exploit that. You know, that's a question that can be asked. But to suggest that all is well and these, you know, crevices are being created politically would be the wrong reading of where we stand today.
I think as far as the political angle is concerned, I doubt very much that any of this incident is going to have any sort of impact on the election in Bihar. Ultimately, the electorate votes on the basis of what they receive from various political parties. And this sort of news, maybe it might dominate a couple of news cycles, but I don't think it will have so much of an impact on election. The Congress party, in any case, is irrelevant, and they have been irrelevant for a long time in Bihar. Now, as far as the three incidents are concerned, each and every incident has to be evaluated on its merit. What happened in the courtroom that day was absolutely disgraceful. And this person, this so-called lawyer, should definitely be hauled up for criminal contempt of court. The problem in India is that there are too many lawyers who don't have enough briefs, but they still keep their bar license and they commit sometimes incidents like actions like this just to get some sort of mileage or publicity. So I think that's the first incident. As far as this suicide of this police officer is concerned, it has to be it has to be investigated as thoroughly as possible, and whoever the culprit has to be brought to book. And the same goes for the Raebareli incident. I do not believe in political terms that there is anything like a pan-India Dalit vote. Now I'm talking in my capacity as a student of politics. People vote on the basis of what they feel, on the basis of which party is going to deliver for them, whatever benefits they might get from any political party, is the deciding factor as far as their vote is concerned.
Okay.
And I think it is going to remain this way. Having said that, there are some politicians who become irrelevant. They've lost the third consecutive Lok Sabha election. In any other country, they would have been replaced as the face of the opposition long ago. And I think it's a bit of a systemic problem with the Congress party, which is why they try and behave like an NGO at times.
All right. I want to bring in Dr. Yengre into this conversation. Dr. Yengre, you know, right now there is an attempt from either side. There's an attempt, and I'm just talking about the politics of it all. You can reflect on the social narrative. But you have the opposition that is trying to build in India each of these incidents as a longer and a more cohesive narrative of subjugation of a particular community, which they will or they look at leveraging politically, where there's nothing wrong in that. On the other hand, there is this attempt by the other side to suggest that these are all lone incidents and they've been just tied together. That's not quite the truth, is it, Dr. Yengre?
It's good to see you, Preeti, and I commend the team who put together these three atrocities in a frame to just give us a picture of what just happened in a week's time. And it really ranges from various class, profession, and vocation that we kind of cover. Before coming on this panel, I spoke to current serving Dalit IPS officers and to kind of get their sense of how they look at it and how they, what their reaction is. And it really, it really starts from the day they pass the exam. And once they get to interviews, and when they get to interviews, obviously the interview bias then delegates them according to the rank. And then despite of all those barriers, some of them, a handful of them, cut through the cutthroat competition and then get the coveted post within the administrative, police, and revenue and so forth department. Now, when they go into this, training and so forth, there's this extremely unhelpful and almost a repressive psychology that works alongside them by fellow trainees, where first of all it is, you got it free, you are a quota candidate, and this just doesn't apply for the people who are in the service. This applies across various schools and colleges and examination. And then it doesn't just happen within the grades of, super class positions, but it happens across the kind of various ranks where people often kind of complain and talk to each other. Now, many, because of this kind of hostility, they're ashamed to disclose their caste. And I remember because they feel that they are from the quota, and oftentimes they just kind of end up living an isolated life. And what does that do, Preeti, is it doesn't really open yourself up to other possibilities of coalition, solidarities, and groups. And many of them just want to just get the job because they've come from almost nothing to what they have. And that creates kind of a double whammy. The first is you isolate yourself from the community and the political experiences that you may have. And then because you're politically incorrect in the situation, you then get doubly targeted. Now, when this happens, what happens is when they are in the service, micro and macro aggressions continue to happen because of their caste. It starts with the position or postings that they want. They can't freely associate with their groups, with their people, or else it will be tamed as these people are favorable. They can't act out of freedom. And more importantly, what the slain IPS officer, Mr. Kumar, wrote, he used the word mental persecution. And this really goes to kind of think about how false charges are leveled against kind of known officers. And this is not an isolated incident. And obviously, what we need to see is this is not just a moment that we need to investigate, right, and which will come in 5 years' time, Preeti. We need to look at this as really a systemic issue, and we really need to overhaul the system. Just tell me, how many IPS, IAS, or IRS, and so forth officers who belong to the SC/ST community have a support base as much as the general category people? And tell me how many Director General of Police belong to SC/ST communities, or how many have they been? We just know this system is corrupt and extremely hostile. Doesn't matter BJP, doesn't matter Mamta, doesn't matter Congress, and so forth. All of these are naked when it comes to performing an actual job of delivering justice.
I'm going to give all of you, I don't have the time because we had some breaking news right on the top, but I'm going to try very hard to give you 30 seconds each to put your point forward. But can we begin with Rashid Kidwai and Karan? We'll come to you after. Go ahead, Rashid ji.
So, Preeti, I was very disappointed with the cold and the kind of mechanical response that my friend Karan and Raghav sought to give, as if, these are the sort of isolated incidents and they're not going to make any kind of political impact, and that the opposition is trying to reap a political, benefit. First of all, each incident is very shocking, particularly the incident of suicide and killing and all are the very extreme and very inhuman, and it's a blot on civil society. Now, to say that the opposition would have any kind of hand in it is absolutely untrue and uncalled for. Opposition is reacting to a situation. And as Dr. Suraj was saying, there is a kind of systemic discrimination that takes place. At least if we cannot do anything, we must acknowledge it, that this is happening. And therefore, Therefore, in particular in Haryana's case, very quickly I want
Right.
to say, when the chief secretary and the DGP are involved, there should be exemplary sort of action should be taken. We just
Right.
cannot say
Well,
because
that's
given an
already
election, it
happening.
will not make an impact.
That actually, Rashidji, is already happening. Current 30 seconds. I don't have time, but just try and wrap up.
So I was calling out the hypocrisy of the Congress when it tried to label the BJP and RSS as anti-Dalit, a party that opposed revocation of Article 370, which denied reservation to the Valmiki Samaj for so many years. So the proof of the pudding lies in the eating. When you have a Valmiki scam going on, when you say na jaat pe na paat pe, mohar lagao haath pe, when you oppose Mandal, when Pandit Nehru writes a letter saying, I am against SC/ST reservation because it leads to second-grade citizens, so then you've not walked the talk. The number one organization that has done most for Dalits is Seva Bharati. The number one organization that has done most for tribals is the Vanvasi Kalyan Ashram. So I believe in deliverables on the ground rather than lip service and rather than running narratives during elections.
Raghav Avasthi, 30 seconds, please. Make your point.
I don't agree with my friend Mr. Gavai. I don't think mine is a cold, heartless response at all. Having said that, I maintain, and as Mr. Yengde very correctly pointed out, this has nothing to do with the BJP or the Congress, but it has more to do with the systemic issues that we have as a society. Now, we can examine the historical context of it. Having said that, I repeat, it is likely to have zero impact on the Bihar Vidhan Sabha election, and the Congress has zero chances of improving its tally on the basis of these two.
Okay. All right. Tehseen, you wanted to come in for a while. Go ahead.
Everything is not about winning elections. A large section of our fellow citizens are being discriminated against. Even if they're in service, as Dr. Suraj rightly said, they are not breaking the top barriers. Like Uttar Pradesh, how many IPS officers from this community are today police commissioners or SPs of important districts? Zero. How many district magistrates are there? Zero. That is the problem. You've had one Chief Justice of the Supreme Court in so many years, in over last 15 years. That is the problem. They may come to a point, but the glass ceiling still exists and they're not able to break it. And that discrimination continues in our society.
Right.
It's not about elections. It's about giving dignity to our fellow citizens, irrespective of politics.
Dr. Suraj, sir, 30 seconds. That's all I have. Go ahead, sir.
Thank you, Preeti. I would like to echo the sentiment shared by all the panelists. They all have heart in the right places, and they would want to communicate the kind of space they want to create for fellow Dalits and Adivasis. And I hope they go back to their constituency and really educate them about the importance of what Constitution stands for. My heart really goes out to the family of the brother IPS Kumar. But also, I think the state should take it as a mandatory exercise in introducing much more deterrent measures and education. I'm not even saying the law, but whenever you get empaneled or you get into service, there should be a compulsory course that educates you about the plight, condition, and the status of SC/ST communities.
Right.
So when you're educated, you may not commit another atrocity and participate in this horrendous massacre that we see.
Well, gentlemen, thank you for taking the time out and joining us. It's a longer, larger debate that should have been touched on.